Fine. We've got multiple mics.
Fine, I'm taller now. Okay.
Actually, that was
so open source geeks in the world of silos.
What's a silo?
Well, who are you? Right?
Who am I?
Okay. Everyone
yeah.
knows who he is, but in case you didn't know,
this is me. I do some stuff for some various companies. I'm mostly a marketing guy / tech journalist. I just kind of hang out and do random stuff. And I'm on the OpenSUSE board. There's that. That's a newer thing.
And that's me. I've probably seen most of you around here already, and I recognize a lot of faces locally anyway. So I work for SUSE. I live like 2 blocks that way and pick up my dog's poop here almost every day.
So some days you leave the dog's poop here?
No, just some days I don't walk the dog.
Okay.
So why are we doing this?
I don't know.
So we're geeks. We're open source geeks, and we live in a world that has become increasingly a world of silos.
Right. Now, what makes up a silo, though, right? So
is that a retaurical question?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question. So there's lots and lots of silos. We've got application stores. We've got, email and services silos. Basically, you're stuck if you live in a world where you use Google services, Adobe products, Microsoft products, etc. You're stuck in a world of a silo where you are forced into it. You are essentially locked in. And there's good points and there's bad points that go along with that.
Quick question, and not to judge, but iPhones, raise your hand if you have an iPhone. If the App Store went away today, what would you do?
I have a terrible case for that if you're looking at me.
I am looking at you.
Because you actually sideload your own apps.
And Android tablets. I've spent years with Android phones.
Sure.
iPads. Windows. Macs.
Yeah, but what do you do? But what do you do? I mean, do you keep using the device?
To me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I would have to put the phone down and interact with people.
That would suck, having to talk to people again. Yeah, I agree. So we're going to try and avoid that. Okay. The whole point of this is to avoid people interaction.
I really wish I could see the next slide.
Yeah, I don't remember what the next slide is.
I think the biggest silo that I've ended up in is Google.
So
what would happen if Google goes away?
Right, what happens, right? So one of the things that we're going to come through here is we're going to kind of talk about some of the various silos that are out there and some of the alternatives to them, and each present a particular side of them.
Yeah, but I mean, mostly the reason why is for you to think when you're buying some cool new thing that depends on some service, what's going to happen? Am I really willing to commit to this? Am I really willing to commit to the service behind it? And just to make you aware that more often nowadays, when you buy something off the shelf, you're also committing to a particular silo.
A particular evil.
And a particular silo.
Right.
And just to be aware of that. And to think about that when you make that choice. So that's the best reason why.
It's a good reason.
Yeah. That wasn't supposed to be there. So
take it first. You own an Amazon Echo.
I own an Amazon Echo. Does anyone else own an Amazon Echo? Yeah. Just really?
Later on.
Okay.
All right, describe it.
An Amazon Echo is first a really nice Bluetooth speaker. It's about this tall and about this way big around, and it weighs about 14 pounds because there's these giant magnets in it. Second of all, it also does a lot of cool voice recognition functions that depend on the Alexa service from Amazon. I think it's really cool. I'm okay with the service. There's an open API for the service. I can write my own apps for the service. Amazon recently released an open source package on GitHub for saying use a Raspberry Pi as an Amazon Echo. Do your own thing.
That's cool.
It's cool.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's less evil than I would expect them to be.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm really happy with my Echo.
Let me ask you this question about the Amazon Echo and the Echo service that it's got.
Yeah.
Can you get the source for it and run it like on your own server?
No.
So what happens if Amazon still keeps going just fine, but they realize that's not profitable and they scrap it, just like Google and every other company scraps those sorts of things all the time?
Still got a really cool Bluetooth speaker.
So it just becomes a Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah.
And it is a cool Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah.
So okay.
And I've had it for over a year.
What if it weren't a Bluetooth speaker? Like, what if it didn't do that part?
No, let's talk about the Mycroft.
All right. So
does anyone know what the Mycroft is?
What is
No.
Yeah, okay, so Mycroft is actually kind of multiple things. It's a piece of hardware that is essentially like the Amazon Echo in that it's a little device, it's got a speaker in it, it listens to you and you can talk to it and say, hey Mycroft, how you doing? And it says, I don't know, I'm doing fine. That sort of thing. It's a basic artificial intelligence engine, which is the open source part of the project, coupled together with a Mycroft piece of hardware that essentially is like the open source, open hardware-y equivalent of an Amazon Echo. So when you look at these sorts of products, to be fair, the Mycroft is, as of this moment, not yet shipping.
I was just going to ask you how you've been enjoying your Mycroft.
So,
because I've had my Echo for like 15 months, and my kids ask it for jokes every day.
So
bad jokes, like you told.
I do not yet have a Mycroft. I'm on the advisory board for Mycroft, and I'm supposed to be getting one soon. But they are making strides towards shipping, and even if they weren't doing that, I would question the logic behind putting something like an Amazon Echo down and becoming dependent on it when you know the service could go away. Like, that to me scares the holy bejeebus out of me. Like, that I would become dependent on a service that could be so easily taken from me.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm too dependent on it. I think it's a nice service, but I feel like because there's this other feature that's still really good and really compelling, and at the early adopter price, it was really compelling.
Yeah, it was. So, the early adopter price was good.
So, how's the Bluetooth speaker on the Mycroft?
Again, I don't know.
All right.
But in theory, phenomenal. But again, with the Mycroft, it's open source. Not only the client side is open source, but the back end is open source, and it might be difficult to kind of recreate the server should the Mycroft server goes down. That could be a real pain in the butt. But it would be theoretically possible to replicate that service, both for me, myself, or someone else doing it.
How's their voice corpus going?
Oh, yeah, so like the collection of voice data so that it responds better. So actually, this is kind of interesting. Does anyone know who Alan Pope is?
Popey.
Okay, Popey. He works over at Canonical, works on Ubuntu, very, very nice guy. He's actually been going through, I can't remember what's the name of the service called that does the voice cataloging. There's an online voice cataloging service where they have you read off like just line after line after line of crazy, archaic, weird, random sentences that make absolutely no sense. And it builds this library for voices so that it can then chop it up and use it as voice synthesis and for voice dictation work. And they're using Alan Pope's voice for this. So he's this British guy with a very odd voice. So theoretically, Mycroft is going to sound like Alan Pope. And if any of you guys know who Alan Pope is, that's hilarious to me. But the cool part about it is it's being done in a very open way. So whatever we have, in theory, I can then go in and say, you know what? I don't want my Mycroft to sound like Alan Pope. I want Mycroft to sound like me. And if I'm willing to spend the, 50 hours of sitting down and dictating sentences after sentences, I can make it sound just like me, which would be super creepy.
I'm sold. I want my device sound like Shodan from System Shock.
Yes!
Well, that's okay. That's
theoretically
cool,
you can
but
do
I'm
that.
more worried about the other side. I mean, Alexa has Alexa. What? Really? Anyway, here we go. So Alexa has Alexa's voice.
Yeah.
But more the other side. I talk to it. It recognizes me. My 9-year-old walks up out of the blue, having done none training, and talks to it. They've got Amazon has a really good voice corpus behind it for doing the recognition.
Yeah.
And that's a really huge service. Now, am I right in understanding that Mycroft will let you switch in the event that their open source corpus doesn't recognize you well? You can switch to, for example, the Alexa service.
I don't know that you could switch to the Alexa service, but in theory, again, it's all open source, so you could make it use a different service.
Or
So
OK
what is it
Google.
using?
Or OK Google. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a something on the back end. They have basically, so what Mycroft does is similar to what Amazon Echo does. So is it takes in your voice dictation, compresses it, sends it up to the server, figures it out, and sends the result back down, which is, both of them do that. I kind of wish they could do it locally a little bit better, but They're both doing it up on the server, and right now I can't remember what their back end is. But in
I
theory,
mean, where do their data sources coming from?
well, that's just it. There's this big online project where it's people donate basically their voice. They read all this off and build this huge archive of people talking, and it uses that for both the synthesis and the recognition. Is my understanding.
But I mean, when you talk to it and you get an answer, where's it getting its answer from?
Oh, the internet, the cloud. So no, it's basically hitting the Mycroft server. The Mycroft server does the voice recognition, and then it passes that information back down to the Mycroft unit itself, or the software, the AI software for Mycroft. And so in theory, if that server goes down, then you either need to come up with an alternate company that recreated that server, or you have to be able to do it locally. Luckily, since it's open source, that becomes much simpler.
Moving on.
How many people use Gmail?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately is the exact right answer. So, I use Gmail as well, and I've been trying to wean myself off of it for about the last year. It is an amazingly difficult process. Once it gets its claws into you, you are there forever. And it is very hard to move away from it. And that's because they offer a very good email package. It works incredibly well. I'm going to make all your points for you, probably. It's free, it works well, it's fast, it's astoundingly dependable.
I'm just going to sit here and drink a beer while you let me win.
It has great spam filtering, right? I mean, just phenomenally good. How many people remember Google's RSS newsreader?
Yep.
Yeah.
How many people are still currently using Google's RSS newsreader? Exactly. This is the very fundamental problem. They made a very, very good web-based newsreader that we all loved very much. And then they took it from us, kicked us over, and ran away laughing. At least that's how it felt to me. Now, here's the problem, is we have no control over this whatsoever. As users, we have no control over if Google stays in business. We have no control over our internet connection to Google. We have no control over the quality of their servers. We have no control over the security of their servers. We have no control over what governments request of Google. No control whatsoever. A lot of things could go wrong that make this disappear. We also have no control over Google deciding one day, you know what? This is a for pay-only service and you need to pay.
But
James, do you have a point to make?
now, Kolab is a great service.
Kolab is a great service.
And yes, they're using all open source products. They're using standard
Does
protocols.
everyone know what Kolab and Kolab Now is?
Okay. No.
Okay, so over in Switzerland, there's this magical place in Europe called Switzerland that has slightly better than some laws in regards to information privacy. Not perfect, but slightly better. Over there's a company called Kolab that is a 100% free software company. They provide a service called Kolab Now that is essentially a collaboration suite. It's basically Gmail, Google Calendar, and a few other things kind of mashed into one service. That email service, it's a paid email service. It's cheap, but it's paid email service. There's no advertising. No one collects data on you and uses it to advertise to you or to use your demographics to sell data off to another company. Because remember, Google is a marketing company. That's where they make money. So that's why they want you using Gmail. No one does that. And because of the laws in Switzerland, your data is a little bit safer from prying eyes, theoretically.
But
and the other side of it is, if you ever decide you don't want to use Kolab Now or Kolab Service anymore, they provide a set of packages for you to download and self-host their entire infrastructure on your own machine and server, download your data files, and you just pick up right where you left off, running the exact same service and the exact same software that you were running, which you can't do with Gmail.
right, but because you're still paying a service, to do that, you would have to have that in place beforehand in the event that they just collapsed or their servers went offline one day.
This is true.
If you haven't already backed up all of your email and backed up all of your calendar and downloaded all the packages, then you're in the same spot.
And with Gmail,
So-
you can download and
Right.
back up your personal data. You just can't download
And you
the
don't have to
infrastructure.
use the Gmail interface and see the ads. You can use an IMAP client. You can use SMTP. So
Also, Google has Contributor now. Have you guys heard of that?
Yep.
Where you can pretty much pay to replace all your ads with cat pictures.
Which is reasonable. I do want less ads and more cat pictures, so that is something. But again, I have no control over it. I like control. I'm a bit of a control freak. I'm absolutely curious. If wipe away all preconceived notions, don't think about the fact that most of you probably rely on Gmail for all of your email and communications. Forget that you use Hangouts as your primary instant message platform. I know most of you do based on statistics. It's just the way it is. I use it plenty too. Forget all that right now. If you have two choices to make, and one of them is you pay between $3 to $5 per month, you have complete control, and you know that you can download and it's completely self-host if you want to. You know your data is more secure, and you know that your information will never be used to be advertised to or be sold off. Or you get this free service that you have no control over the future existence of, and the data is sold off and you're advertised to. It really comes down to a choice. Which choice do you make?
Not again.
And this is just something to think about. I mean, it's something to ponder on. It's not to say that anyone's bad if they decide to go the Gmail route.
We've talked too long about this.
Have we?
Yes. The
All right.
projector gods say we talked too long about this point.
So think about that. Keep that in the back of your head.
So the Hangouts has a nice integration with something like called Google Voice,
Yes.
which basically allows you to have multiple phones, etc. Or
Google Voice
switch
is
between
amazing.
actual, actual phone and voice over IP, and it's basically all
I know.
same phone number. And this is pretty much the only thing that cannot find any alternative.
You and me both. We're in the exact same boat.
I was going to say, do you have a cell phone?
I don't have a cell
No?
phone.
What service do you use?
I use Google Voice.
Okay.
And this sucks. The fact that there's no fantastic replacement for either a traditional cell phone or Google Voice, or there's a couple of other services that are kind of iffy. I could go like the SIP phone route, but depending on the service, there's a problem there. There's no good replacement for that service. And that stinks. My adorable daughter just came back in the room. Hi, Josie.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Quick question for the Kolab. Does
Yeah.
it have anything like Google Docs? That's only
Yes,
thing I really care about.
it does. Kolab now does have something that's like a collaborative documentation sort of thing where you can have documents and notes and share them between people. Honestly, it's not as powerful as Google Docs. It works well, and it works well for collaboration, but I don't know that I'd say it's any more advanced than like an Etherpad kind of a thing.
picked
It's
it.
okay.
He picked it.
The KeePass versus LastPass.
I use LastPass
He uses LastPass.
everywhere. Every
Freaking
browser,
ridiculous.
everything. I think the guy saw when I brought up my browser, I had to like plugged in my YubiKey to unlock my keys in my browser.
Adorable.
Yep. It's pretty spiffy. Works on my Android device.
He sure does.
Works on my apps and
Yeah.
in the browser.
Yeah,
And it works on Chrome and it works on Firefox.
that's great.
And the way they've architected it, I'm not worried about their security at all. My password is not a password for their service
To be clear,
My
you're not
password
worried
is
about
an
the
in-
security at all.
at all.
No concerns whatsoever.
Not in the least.
None at all.
Nope.
Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
My passphrase is an encryption key for an encrypted blob of data that
Wait,
sits on their servers.
And it's all on their little YubiKey?
No. I have to put in a
Well, what's on
separate
the little key?
password.
Oh, is the key
key
just
is
the
a
file?
second multi-factor.
Let me see.
multi-factor.
So you just have this little one.
Yeah. I plug it into USB and I push the button, and that's the multi-factor part.
This is mine now.
But you still don't know my passphrase.
And you're saying there's no possible way for me to get that.
No.
What about the hot soldering iron?
That's true. Now, to be fair, most of the methods you're going to use to break this are the same as if you just had the passwords only in your brain. I mean, realistically, it's just,
Yeah.
it's human.
You could
human
rainbow
hacking.
table that thing for a long time.
You could rainbow table that for a long time. So, but
Long
here's
time.
the thing: where are those? So those passwords in LastPass are stored where?
There's a blob of encrypted data that
I
goes
love
on their
blobs
server.
on their servers. Where's their server at?
I don't care. Because they don't know what's in it.
All right, let's.
None of their clients ever know
hypothetical.
what's in my blob.
Hypothetical. There is a blob.
Uh-huh.
It is super friggin' secure. Nobody on Earth can figure out how to reverse engineer this and get your passwords out, right? In theory. You take that blob. A guy comes to you and says, I'll stick that blob somewhere. Do you give that unknown stranger the blob where he stores it in some unknown location? Who feels completely comfortable with that? You are very proud of that. What makes you comfortable with that? And that's not an accusatory question. Like it really.
Even one of the presenters didn't raise his
It's
hand.
been vetted by people far smarter than I am.
Yeah, me not raising my
What
hand.
says that I can protect my data any better than they can?
Now that's a great question. Who says that you're better at it than someone else? That is theoretically the expert, right? Theoretically, the people over at LastPass are friggin' brilliant when it comes to cryptography and storing things in secure ways, right? LastPass could never be hacked,
Here we go.
right? It just couldn't happen, right? Now, when was the last time LastPass was hacked?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. How many?
Wait a minute.
How
There's
many
another proof
months
that
has it
Would
been?
we ever act in a way that
No
people's
user data
were
was
actually
no.
exposed?
No user data was ever compromised.
Ever?
You're absolutely right. As far as we know, that is absolutely true.
Now,
They've been hacked.
granted,
As far as we know.
if you
And
now,
it's been useless.
if you use LastPass,
Wait.
if you use LastPass and you didn't use multi-factor authentication and your password was password, then you're probably in trouble. But you're probably in trouble anyway.
Right.
If you're taking reasonable security
Right.
measures,
Right.
then you're probably
the kind of guy who
not.
left your front door open too.
I don't do that either. I have a camera on my front door.
Yeah, right. I don't trust anybody.
Do they store all your data in the cloud?
Yes.
Just because it hasn't been hacked yet.
Yeah, you.
The real danger about, so you can encrypt stuff, and that's cool and that's fine, but the real danger about storing that in the cloud is we don't know what's going to happen with, say, quantum computing in the future. So right now, that
Yes.
stuff is impenetrable.
And it's not just quantum computing. There are many different ways to break cryptography of 20 years ago that we thought 20 years ago were completely unbreakable. Not even just in theory unbreakable. We were damned certain unbreakable. And that's a repeating pattern. Granted, we have gotten a lot of experience with this now, a lot more than we used to have, and we are far more secure in those ways now than we ever have been. But again, we don't know where that data's at. We don't know what that data could be used with in the future. And just to the usability standpoint, what happens if LastPass goes away?
I have all my passwords printed out.
Okay.
in my phone.
Read
My-
Okay.
In a locked fireproof case, and I do it every 90 days.
See, you know what? And that is
So
smart.
yes,
What you
I'm
did is
probably
smart.
crazy about this. I'm probably like the 1% of the rule, but I want to use a service.
Yeah.
I want the convenience of something that will keep the passwords in Firefox and Chrome on 4 different machines and my phone in sync, and still give me 2 factors of authentication for security, and nothing else,
KeePass.
Yeah.
including KeePass, will not do that for me.
I
Well,
use
wait,
it with
another bit about
KeePass.
that.
Granted, there are multiple tools involved in doing that, but I
Yeah,
have
that's
synchronized
like-
everything. So my
No, no.
laptops, desktops, my phone.
This amazingly handsome gentleman has a very good point. It is absolutely doable with KeePassX, but you're right, it is not as seamless. It is not as seamless as LastPass. It's not.
True,
You
true,
install LastPass, you stick the LastPass app on friggin' everything you have, and it pretty much just works.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
It's
really
pretty crazy
seamless.
how
It
nice that
autofills
works.
that stuff everywhere. KeePassX, the autofill in browsers, it works sometimes.
Works pretty well, actually.
But it doesn't always work as well. I've got to be honest. I use this route. I go with KeePassX because then I get my little encrypted file and I stick it where I trust it. And now, am I significantly more secure than the army of LastPass systems administrators? No, but I'm also not
You're lucky
putting
your pants stay up.
Now here's the thing. All right, so this gentleman right here is a devious hacker, a horrible one. He is so malicious, and he's out to get every single one of us, or at least most of us, if he can. Now, what does he want? Does he want all of us to take our files and stick it in one spot that we feel is secure, and then just have to find a way in once? Or for all of us to put all of our files in unique individual locations, each one possibly being a little less secure than that one, but he has to figure out how to get into every single friggin' one of us. Not only how to get in, but where is it even at in the first place? I have a server in Germany, and I have a server in New Jersey. I have 2 servers. One of my servers, neither of which anyone here knows about because there's only an IP address associated with both of them. One of them has my KeePassX file on it. Go find it and take me down. All of my passwords are in it. I feel supremely confident that no one here is going to find my server, let alone get into my server, and then crack the encryption around KeePassX, which in my opinion is just as good as LastPass.
You're boring, Elon.
Elon's always boring. All right.
Security by
Put that out
obscurity isn't really security.
It's not obscurity. If you have a rock, if you have a key for your front door, right? Everyone has. All right. So does anyone here hide a key somewhere for their house? I do. I absolutely do.
No.
I totally do. There is a key to get into my whole friggin' house with my children and everything, and it's hidden.
It's always on me.
Find it. Is it obscurity?
Spearfishing you.
Come on. It's actually not even on my property, but it's hidden somewhere, right? I have a key somewhere. Just like I have my KeePassX file somewhere. It's tucked away, it's hidden behind additional layers of security on top of that. So not only am I security by obscurity, I'm security by obscurity that's then obscured, that's then encrypted like hell. And if my server goes down, it's my own damn fault most likely, because I did something stupid. If LastPass goes down, I can't get into my email account.
Yes, you can. There's an offline cache.
Well,
On every device that you have.
Yeah. It's actually really nicely architected. And
All right.
I'll give you the point about
Sync
the
breaks,
density of
yeah.
data.
Yeah.
You will.
But it's really nicely architected.
And
Okay.
just to point out, my servers have been hacked far less than LastPass's. Just say.
As far as
That I
you
know
know
of.
that.
To be fair, someone might be in there right now, but as far as I know, it's cool.
Now,
I think you just challenged someone.
I got one question though. You mentioned that you have the server where your KeePass is at.
I did.
Do you have backups of that?
Yes.
Okay.
In a hard file location, in a fireproof safe.
Okay.
Kept off. Just like he does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same basic idea. I mean, I don't have one printed out on paper. I have one that's kept on a small piece of magnetic media offsite.
I don't trust magnetic media.
I don't trust magnetic media either. But what are you gonna do? All right.
Okay,
Next
moving
one.
on. Now that we've established that we're both paranoid security freaks.
Yes.
One word. Netflix.
And that's a pretty good word. All right. Does anyone here use Chrome? Google Chrome? Most of you. Hands down.
Raise your hand.
Chrome. Sometimes when I watch Netflix. Yeah.
What's that running over there?
Chrome.
Okay. Just make sure.
Chromium.
Once in a while.
Firefox.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the reality is most of us use multiple browsers, right? For different purposes. Now, Google Chrome. Why? What's the benefit outside of Netflix?
That's it.
Yeah. The packaging. The
Integrate-
packaging of the plugins.
And integration with Google services, right? I mean,
care about
over
that so
another
much,
browser.
But the packaging of
Does
plugins.
anyone care about that? Does anyone utilize the integration between Chrome and Google services for like the remembering passwords and everything else? Because
No.
they use the password storage.
LastPass.
You're shaking your heads like crazy.
I don't log into my Google account in Chrome.
That's what
Because
LastPass
it
is for.
screws
That's what
up
LastPass
my
is for.
bookmark syncing,
Yeah.
Interesting.
which
That's
I
fair.
use X marks for. LastPass. Backslash.
LastPass. Okay. All right. You know what? You know, I'm willing to give up on this one because realistically, we all use like 5 different web browsers anyway. So honestly, we're all just going to use the right one for any particular job. So
Good, because I didn't have anything beyond Netflix.
And I don't have anything beyond logging in as lame, so we can just move on past this slide.
Okay.
Firefox has a syncing like for bookmarks, etc., and you can roll your own server.
They do. They do
Yes,
actually.
they do.
And there's another browser that does as well, and it's escaping me right now.
But I can't take
Does
take
Opera
my
allow you to roll your server
Firefox
for it?
sync and use it in Chrome.
And
And there are
you can
things
use your
that
laptop,
there
for
are things
example,
that I
on
need
your
to
phone.
do in Chrome.
Okay.
So
And I need it on
yeah.
my phone too.
Right.
Okay.
No, it'll sync to Firefox on Android, and I really like Firefox on Android too. But but
Okay,
it won't
okay.
get over to Chrome anywhere.
Right,
So
right.
I do use Firefox Sync for some of Firefox's syncy things, but not passwords. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. We can move on past this one. Home automation stuff.
This is an interesting one.
This
So
is
we could
weird.
probably expand this past the Wink Hub, but I chose the Wink Hub very particularly
I'll let you
because I'm
start on this
comfortable
one.
with it. Does anybody know what the Wink Hub is? Has anybody heard of Quirky? Okay, there's a few hands coming up. Okay, yes.
Quirky's gone.
Quirky's sort of gone.
So
Quirky
many
sort of
of
went
them.
bankrupt. Anyway, the Wink Hub is a home automation box, like many home automation boxes on the market. It's a very small embedded Linux box with a bunch of radios that talks to a service to let you do home automation things. I chose the Wink Hub for two reasons.
I know.
I chose
I'm just trying not to interrupt.
So, number one, the Wink Hub was really, really cheap. At the time that I bought it, it was
It's a good
20
deal,
bucks.
right? It's a good
It
deal.
was 20 bucks.
Yeah.
So I figured whatever happens, 20 bucks.
That's like a dinner
Darn,
at McDonald's.
I can't go to Starbucks
Yeah.
this month because I blew my 20 bucks on my Wink Hub. Okay. The devices that connect to it are in a standard protocol. So I've been buying Z-Wave devices, which I could
Nice.
take to another hub if I wanted to.
And you
But-
may need to.
And they have a really nice open API.
Also good.
Again, like the Echo, there's a very nice open API. It's pretty easy to integrate with. I've done some Arduino stuff that hits their REST API and does cool things, and I've been able to hack on it.
That's
And
nice.
now Wink Hub came out of a foundation group called Quirky, and Quirky was designed about letting people create projects and then bring them to market with major companies like Mattel or GE. And actually, they've come out of bankruptcy now, and they're
Yeah,
going
I
again.
just
Yeah,
went to their website
but
and I was like, ooh, they're
Wink,
back.
They're kind
Wink
of
has
alive.
their own thing, and interestingly enough, and this was something really cool that came out as a side effect.
Yeah.
When they went through the bankruptcy product,
Zombies.
the Wink application.
Oh, zombies. Oh, yeah.
Stop! The Wink service added a new feature, and it's not everywhere yet. They haven't rolled it out everywhere yet, but it allows the Wink Android application or iOS application to talk over the LAN directly to the hub and not use the service at all.
That's cool.
So, and
What
I can't
happens-
help
happens-
thinking that's just a coincidence, but that they
That
are
Revolve-
concerned
Revolve.
that it
Yeah.
could disappear, and that they wanted people to know that there was some path.
Does everyone know what Revolve is?
Speaking of Google wanting to just shut down things because
Yes.
they want it, yeah.
Exactly. So Revolve is a home automation system kind of like this. And Revolve shipped a piece of hardware. There was a service that went along with it. Revolve got purchased by Nest, another company obviously doing the same sort of thing. Nest got purchased by Google. Google took a look at that and said, meh, and shut down the service and bricked
Well,
everyone's device.
Nest shut it down.
What?
Nest shut it down. They have a separate CDN.
Okay, Alphabet, the parent company
Come on,
that
Alphabet
owns,
is
now owns
Google.
both Google and Nest, shut it down.
Yeah.
Google shut it down. I mean, come on.
Because they have
Yeah.
their own thing.
Yeah.
Right. So now those people who bought that home automation platform, completely out of luck. Their home automation stops working. The devices, some of the devices that connect to that home automation platform will keep working in their dumb state.
Yeah.
Some of them cease working entirely. Like there are some thermostats that you can connect up that now don't work. People now have wired their homes for thermostats that no longer control or read temperature because they were invested in a silo that was off-site and they don't have control over what that company does with the service or what they push down to the piece of hardware that you have purchased that they don't feel you actually own.
Okay, but Revolve is a horrible case. But Revolve isn't on the slide.
Okay.
Okay.
You make a good point.
And
Wink Hub
you-
does seem to
you-
be doing things a lot better.
Yeah.
I think and I'm willing to go with this. So there are completely open, attempts at building these sorts of home
How is
automation platforms.
Open HAB working out for you?
I'm not running it.
Okay.
But yeah.
What,
Yeah.
you're not nothing. You can't tell your Amazon Echo to turn on the kids' heaters. Or
I can't tell
Torchlight?
my nothing to do nothing because I
That
simply
sucks.
don't have smart devices throughout my home like this. I just don't. But there are projects to get that going in a more open way, and I think our time is better spent focusing on getting those to the point where we can have our services that. I'm totally gonna win this because she's cute. And that's how this works.
So just to be clear, you're doing nothing with OpenHAB, but
doing
you
nothing.
like it because it's all open.
So you know what? I haven't got into home automation until now because I've been afraid of things like
Okay.
Revolve and Nest.
Are we over time or something?
What time is it?
15:58, another 22 minutes.
All right.
Okay,
Let's keep,
we're
let's
fine.
keep browsing.
So really, it's not about the things, right? We've been talking about the things, but it's not about just the Echo or the Mycroft or using LastPass or using Chrome.
Nope.
It's not what it's about, right? It's about these bigger ideas that we've been kind of bringing up. You know, it's about, do we want to wait for something that's perfect? Like maybe the Mycroft will be perfect and they'll have this completely open corpus and
Yeah.
everybody can build open things and they'll have this great open device. But I've been using my Echo for like a year and a half.
You have, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's been a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's shipping.
So, you know, do we need to wait for the perfect thing or do we just jump in with the good? Because we are geeks and we want to play with new stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna not buy
Right.
toys. That's just not gonna happen.
When Minecraft comes out, you can just buy that too.
I know, I might. I
And
don't
then
know.
you could put them next to each other and see if you get them to talk to each other. Like, I wonder who would win an argument between Mycroft and Echo.
There you go.
Right?
There's not people debating anymore. Let's just put a couple of robots next to each other.
You know,
Right?
OpenHAB isn't anywhere near what I can do with my Wink.
Nope, you're right.
You know, and
It's getting
and
better,
again,
but it's not there.
I can do all these things, and they really look like they're going to move in a way that even if they fell over, I'd still be able to keep using it at least long enough to move to some other cheap box.
And I think you're going to be able to do that because of the immense amount of people that have suffered because of companies who have had silos where they have basically bricked people's devices.
Right.
And people are upset about it and talking about it, and so now companies are like, woo,
Well, some of these
we better
devices
provide offline
are
mode.
really expensive. I mean, if you bought, is there a Nest device that's like under $100? Nothing. Not even like the the smoke detectors, right?
Yeah, it's expensive.
Dude, what if they bricked your smoke detector? That would be awful, right?
Right?
But not only did they give you a little notice, but it's also like a lot of money. The Wink Hub was like $20. Normally they're like $50. It's not an obscene investment. The Revolve Hub was expensive, right?
I went out of town like a couple of months ago for some sort of a trip. I can't remember what I was doing. It was like 5 days gone. And when I came back, my house was crazy hot. It was like 95 degrees because my thermostat broke. It broke. And it just heated my house to high holy hell. Now, that was a dumb thermostat, and I knew why it broke and was able to fix it. But what if I'm gone and a service does that? What if I'm gone and a service bricks and now my home is now frozen or my home is now way too hot? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's not a piece of hardware breaking. It's someone deciding that they are no longer going to allow me to have that functionality. And I
Well,
just
maybe
can't
the
hide
service
that.
is also the thing telling you that, hey, your thermostat went wonky and your house is like 90 degrees. Do you want us to shut it off?
There was actually a news story about that not too long ago where they did, like on Good Morning America, they were doing a bit on the Amazon Echo, and they issued a command to it to set the temperature in a house to a certain degree, and a bunch of people's houses, their Echoes went off and set the temperature to that.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I had a thing, and this isn't
One
as
echo
bad.
triggered a bunch of others.
No, because
But-
they'd heard the TV.
Because the TV, I had my Android tablet was up, and someone on the TV was doing a thing, and they said, "Okay, Google,"
And it's like,
it really, I don't know, it was like Colbert or something, like he was doing a shtick, but it was like, whoa, that really worked, and that's freaky.
Wasn't Echo like you could? Wasn't an Echo you could set up custom name or something? Like instead of Alexa or something.
It has 3 choices right now, and they'll probably expand it to more. There's a lot of pressure for computer to be the 4th choice.
Of course, yeah.
What if Nest had an SLA, so we say you only have 2 nines of heat in your home?
So that's actually a valid solution.
That-
But anyway,
yeah.
so
There is another idea with that. I have an sensor. I think it's not F or G. It's NetAtmo. So you can have checks and balances between different platforms. So
You
if one of
can,
them falls over, one of them does something stupid that is now causing issues.
Is that the world we're in now?
so it's not okay to use a service, but it's okay to use 2.
It's okay to use 2? Like the amount of, I'm so afraid of this. Like, have you
So 2 wrongs do make a right.
It's like watching like
effectively.
any like a Mission Impossible movie, right? Where they have to have Simon Pegg hack the system to like screw up the weather control system so that Tom Cruise can come in through the vent. It kind of feels like that. The more things we're adding to our homes, and I don't want to be the paranoid guy with the tinfoil hat, but do we really want that many systems with that many points of entry that actually control the physical characteristics of our home, like our thermostat, our lights, and our locks? Do we really want that?
Eventually,
Yeah.
Does that scare the crap out of everybody else, at least a little bit like it does me?
But I mean, I've worked on commercial systems for greenhouses, large thing, huge boilers, 2 million BTUs per hour.
Yeah.
And they all have multiple interlocking safety things. Now those are all mechanical or
Right.
whatever. But the idea, for one thing, you wouldn't be able to get a certificate to operate them, and you would get, you know, every 2 years we had to get. So the idea of multiple things
That
doing
makes
checks
sense.
on each other
But
is-
are those multiple checks and balances internet accessible by
No, I
some guy
wouldn't.
in Croatia?
Well, unfortunately,
I don't mean to be derogatory against Croatians. I don't know why I just randomly picked that country.
And the last place I worked at, we actually had a control system that used to be, or was originally a DOS-based system, and you could only download the modem. But their latest version is actually internet-based. So you could actually, there is a control system that you can then control.
Sure.
And not the individual controls, but the overall control system that works. Now they actually do some security bars. There's a couple of the security things they do, so not anybody can log into it. But
Right.
no, but that was one of the things I brought up when they did that was,
Yeah,
I mean, before you.
that makes me nervous.
Yeah, it makes me nervous too. But that's
Yeah.
the reality of.
Which time do we have?
I mean,
15 minutes?
Okay.
it was like the recent thing where they caught the guys supposedly hacking the dam in Connecticut.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, they actually think that they picked the wrong one. They were actually looking for the one with a similar name in Oregon, but they didn't realize they were hacking the wrong one. But
Accidental hacking.
yeah, well, this one was just a little flood control dam. It didn't. But anyway, that's a different story.
I feel like, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like open APIs are a great step.
That's not
When a
enough.
service provides an open API,
No.
this allows them to build their thing, do their own thing, pursue something maybe proprietary, which is still easier to get money into than a completely open project.
Cool.
But they're giving me a public interface, of documenting to me how I can work with it,
That's nice.
letting me do my own things with it.
That's nice.
I think
But
that's-
Microsoft has done that since the 80s. That's nice, but it's not enough. It's not enough to convince me to do that. Like, I can use an open API, to build an iOS application that goes into the iOS App
It's
Store.
not really an open API. You can't use whatever client you want to hit that API. You can't.
Okay,
you know.
fair.
I mean, more specifically, let's say web APIs for service that you can actually like work with curl.
But again, if you don't have the ability to get all the software that responds to those APIs and performs the functions, what's the point?
Right.
I mean, what in essence is the point,
Yeah.
right?
But again, looking at the closed source products versus the completely open source products, what's hitting the market first?
And
Where are
this
the
is the
engineering
reason
resources being
that
put?
we're giving this is because this is an ongoing conversation,
Right.
and neither of us are budging on this. And I think it's an important conversation to be having. I think that more people should be having this sort of conversation openly because a company, realistically, the engineers and the low-level managers that are working at the companies producing these services, are the people really making these decisions. I mean, realistically. Sometimes there's an executive who's like, no, we gotta keep it all locked up. But realistically, they just want to make money. If we as the engineers and the mid-level managers go and say, okay, we can keep our stuff secure, we can protect our intellectual property, and still provide some of this source code for clients or whatever, they'll go with that. That's the reality for most companies. So these are conversations that we need to be having so that we don't accidentally fall into these traps.
Where would we be if, like, 10 years ago we decided open APIs was enough? Would we have the same software today?
What web services do you see or do you consume that were open APIs 10 years ago that weren't now, or that should have been open APIs 10 years ago?
I don't know.
There wasn't really anything like that yet.
Things have changed a lot in the last decade, and I think that's why we need to have these conversations. I mean,
Right.
within the last decade, a decade ago, yes, technically electronic application stores existed, but they weren't really in use by most people. I mean, most people just didn't use them. Most people still went down to like Egghead software, or what have you. You know what I mean? I mean, it's true. That's how things were back then. And I mean, there's yet another example. Things have changed so dramatically and so quickly. When we were kids, I guess we is a relative term here. It's pretty mixed. But like we had, let's say, an Atari or an NES, right? Those games still work today if you blow on them hard enough. Right now, right?
Yep.
They still work. If you have an iOS or Android game, if that app store goes away, those games do not work anymore. They stop working, which means that the games your kids are playing right now, if they're playing them on those devices, they don't get to reminisce about their youth in 20 years. They don't get to do it. I can show my daughter how to play Dig Dug on the same Dig Dug I played on when I was a kid. And that is a friggin' magical moment. The children nowadays don't get to have that moment. And the only reason they don't get to is either A, because companies who built the stuff decided that your kid doesn't deserve that moment, which is an ass thing to do. Or B, there was just a bad design decision made where they made things a little too reliant on a service that was fundamentally not going to exist ad infinitum. And it's just a simple mistake to make. But that simple mistake has long-lasting ramifications.
Yeah, more specifically even than the Android and iOS stuff, the Xbox. Xbox One.
Does anyone have an Xbox One?
Yeah.
In the garage.
Okay. I have an Xbox One. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's not my favorite little piece of device, but I have one.
Does it run Linux?
Oh, no. And you know what? Not only does it not run Linux, when you turn it on, if you can't log into Microsoft's Xbox Live servers, it doesn't do squat.
Nothing.
Nothing. It literally, even if you have full internet access, can I go on YouTube? No. Can I play a lot of my games? No, I can't. Even single player local only games because I'm not able to log in. Can I play Blu-ray? No. I can't do anything.
That's bad.
It has an Internet Explorer little browser in it that works like garbage, but it has one. Can't use it unless you can log in and connect directly to Microsoft's Xbox Live service, which means if they go offline, you're bricked. If they go out of business, you're bricked. If they decide to slowly wind down that service because they haven't sold one in 10 years, you're bricked. If they change their API and you somehow get a little out of sync and they screwed up, you're bricked again. It sucks so much.
Then
it's
again,
so
people
bad.
aren't going to be interested in showing those games to their kids in 20 years.
No,
Those aren't Dig Dug.
Those aren't Dig Dug. I know. But it's just the same. What if they are?
No,
and it's,
I can't even agree with that.
And like, how many people have an Android tablet or a laptop and something Androidy, right? Okay, so do I. Do you have productivity software that you've downloaded and installed from the Google Play Store that you use in your work, in your play, something like that? Okay.
Mostly
You don't own that software. Not only do you not by rights own that software, you're simply having a temporary agreement to utilize someone else's software, which I believe is fundamentally morally and ethically wrong. But beyond that, if that service goes away, you can't keep using it. I have a nice little code editor that I use on Android. I think it's just called Code Edit Pro. It's really quite nice. It does like text formatting for me and everything. I connect it up with Git. It's very, very nice. If I no longer connect to the Play Store, I can't use that piece of software anymore. Now, if I already have it installed, and it is the 2% of Android applications that don't have the service checking in it, which almost all do, I might be able to keep using it as long as I don't reformat my system somehow. And that's it.
But
it sucks.
But Android has at least given us a way around that. And better defining the way the APKs are built, and you can go to other stores.
Right.
And you can go to independent developers and download an APK and go through 42 security boxes, but eventually install that APK on your device.
So let's say you have there's a really cool Office suite. Let's say the LibreOffice guys finally ship an Android version of LibreOffice, right? We've wanted this. I want this really badly. I think it would be fantastic. Let's say they ship it and put it up on the Google Play Store, right? And it works like gangbusters. Flash forward 5 years, the Google Play Store goes down because they're not doing Android anymore. They're focusing all on a new version of Chrome OS that's kind of sort of like Android. That's not an unforeseen possibility. That would happen constantly. It's no big deal. But unless then the LibreOffice people thought, I'm going to make sure I publish an APK that's signed just so on my website for people to download for specific versions of Android, again, I'm out of luck. That old version's gone. I can no longer install it. And if it's something that I paid someone for and had a license for that was through the Google Play Store, again, gone. I don't have that opportunity anymore. And that scares me. I don't like that at all.
Blah, 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 blah.
I think we've talked about this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Given there's a cost,
There's a cost.
to any ad-driven service.
Free is nice, though.
So, more questions? Or are you all like, oh crap, what have I done now?
Cloud storage and synchronization, something like Dropbox versus something like, for example, C-File.
On cloud?
I tried OnCloud. I found the synchronization capabilities blow chunks.
You and 90,000 million other people.
So,
but they have gotten
C-File.
better.
I use-
C-File has very nice synchronization, actually. Very nice.
I use SpiderOak. I use SpiderOak for backup.
I'm a big
and
fan
very
of
in a
SSHing
very
into my
limited
servers.
capacity for sync. Yeah, I mostly rsync.
Yeah,
for
rsync
sync.
into my servers. Yeah.
I'll let SpiderOak sync like my music or my photos, but not a document that I actually want in real time. Because by the time they get done going through the encrypting for zero knowledge and getting the blocks over to the other machine and decrypting for zero knowledge, it's been too long.
How much does it usually take? What's the delay? Say you create a document, save it.
Two computers sitting next to each other, it can take 4 minutes for the file to actually be in sync. I'm sure sometimes
That's
it takes
crazy.
less. I don't use it very much for that. But again, what they're doing with doing encryption locally in the system with a key that's unique to that system and then requiring you to then authenticate on the other machine to do it so that nothing that they have, unlike Dropbox, which is, there have been DMCA takedowns of files in people's private Dropboxes, not things they publicly shared, but private, which means that there is an interface for third parties to look in that service and see whatever. So
That's
zero knowledge.
C-File has you can create encrypted libraries and they also be encrypted locally. So I had for small files, like not very big ones. It's actually within seconds synchronized, similar to Dropbox.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. Yeah.
Within seconds.
Just in OwnCloud's defense, if anyone hasn't tried it recently, it got a lot better. Like in the last 6 months or so, I try and test them like every version or so.
We used
it went
it
from to hey, all right.
We used it.
What I like about OnCloud is that you can access through the web interface very nicely because C-File is very limited in that regard.
Exactly. Exactly.
We used OwnCloud at a conference for the infrastructure for doing distribution of presentations to all the presentation machines, and it went really well. But that was on a LAN, and that's a little different experience than putting it on a DigitalOcean droplet or something and expecting a good experience with it. Also, my SpiderOak experience may be skewed because I have an unlimited account there, so there's like way too much data.
Yeah, and again, I store everything on my own servers, and because of that, that means I have the added cost and overhead of making sure those servers are maintained and up to date, which kind of sucks. I mean, it's not convenient. It's really not convenient. It very rarely is a problem, but when it is, I actually have to deal with it instead of some other poor sysadmin that gets called at 2 a.m. to deal with it.
What do you think is the bigger answer for people who don't go to conferences like this?
honestly, I think
the guy who served us our food today, just the average person who doesn't debate open source questions but uses Gmail and Amazon Echo and
I think
Netflix
it's
and
the
all
same sort of problem we have with advocating open source software. It's the same basic thing. The concepts that we're talking about resonate with all of us, but we're nerds, and we're not normal people, not at all. And what
percentage of the general population do you think has all their username and passwords printed out and put in a file-proof safe somewhere?
Right. I mean,
it's like nobody.
Right.
They're mostly using the same password everywhere on everything, right? You know.
I have a family member who gave me their password to log into their email account, and I just about shot milk out my nose. It was so ridiculous. I mean, it was ridiculous. And they're not abnormal. They're normal people. And so I think getting and talking to people outside of just having a one-on-one chat with them. The reality is they're not going to sit down and come to a conference. They're not going to sit down on a YouTube video that's all about discussing these sorts of nerdy topics, and they're definitely not going to read a how-to article posted up on Network World or wherever talking about exactly how to secure their data. So what I've tried to do is make funny videos, and what I've found is funny, amusing things people like, even if it's a bit nerdy. So what we have to do is cross over the barrier between hardcore computer nerds to general nerds. The people who are not computer nerds but who are cosplayers and the like, they're receptive to us. They understand nerd. And they understand when we geek out about this stuff. And then they start to get worried about it too. And so we have to have those conversations and have videos and all sorts of things like that.
The problem with this...
To better communicate with the general.
Yeah, I mean, it's steps, right? We need to bring in the sci-fi and comic book nerds. We need to bring in the cosplayers. We need to bring all of the nerds in together.
But we also need to be early adopters as nerds.
Yes.
When we're early adopters, we still have the opportunity to influence.
Yes.
And choose.
Early adopters actually do quite a bit. So just Linux users. There are many, many companies that earn a lot of money off of just Linux users. Support, software, services, the works. So if we, as a collective group, vote with our wallets and move towards services that don't silo us in, that don't keep us in, then those companies will be encouraged to further offer more services. I mean, that is the reality.
I didn't know Kolab runs actual service. So.
Yeah, Kolab now, it is fantastic. It does cost a couple dollars a month though, but it really is good. And not only do they offer you the ability to download the entire suite and run it locally, because it's 100% GPL free software, top to bottom, but they also take the money that the revenue they do bring in and contribute it back to like the KDE project and multiple other projects so they can keep more free software going. And that makes me have warm fuzzies all over it.
Okay, yes.
What about legislation? Like kind of push it from that side to maybe help steer
Yes.
to wanting to make sure you have an out.
On that note,
I would love to see devices that come with a service say, hey, did you know?
So yes, vote with this.
Yeah.
So I have, in my various other hat-wearing capacities, reached out to all of the current and a couple of the out-of-the-race Democratic and Republican primary candidates. And all of them but one are very, very, very encouraging of things like silos and are very much not okay with, us owning our own data. There's only one candidate, and I'm not going to say who that candidate is because I think we can all figure it out. But there's one candidate who's cool with people having their own data, who is against surveillance of U.S. citizens, et cetera. There's only one, and I don't want to get political about it, but if you look into my articles, I provide quotes from all of them. It's not Hillary.
I don't think
When
there's
the
any
articles come back up on your website.
What was that?
When the articles come back up on your
Oh
website.
no! Go to that particular one's up on networkworld.com.
Networkworld.com.
Networkworld.com, yeah, on that one, yeah. But it is interesting. So, email the candidates because they actually are receptive to it because they really, most of them don't have an opinion on this.
Hillary's not using Gmail.
Hillary's not using Gmail. They really, most of them don't have a strong opinion on this. They really don't. They're reliant on their voters to say this is what we want, and then they're just going to roll with it. Because on this issue, I mean, come on, the Bible Belt doesn't care what we're talking about cryptography. Like, this is just not an election issue for them. But if enough people respond to them and say, hey, this is going to get you the nerd vote, well, okay, that's just half of 1%, but half of 1% could make a big difference in a close election. They're going to listen, especially if they don't even have to take a dramatic stance. If they simply issued like a tiny little press release that says, I sure do like privacy, I sure do think open standards are swell, they can be done, and then they get all of our votes. That's kind of an easy place, so just email.
You're 1% or a portion of 1% of the total vote, but if it's 90% of the people they hear from.
Exactly.
Right?
It seems big.
Yeah.
So yes, I relentlessly get a hold of all the candidates about these issues, and I highly recommend other people do the same, because some of them are very, very anti things like privacy and personal ownership of data. It is surprising.
If you think back
a sense of how you're
It's
elected.
amazing, yeah. If we can sway just 1 or 2 people, it changes those votes entirely. So it's kind of amazing. Now, what I'm curious about, where do you guys stand on this? How do we do this?
I don't know.
Do we do a show of hands?
I feel like the debate thing just kind of turned into
A discussion?
yeah.
There's no real winner on this.
I don't know, unless you guys want to pick a winner.
So I guess what it comes down to is
Josie's the winner.
Yes.
I take that.
As long as she's running Linux.
Oh yeah. Well, actually on that one, that's a Nintendo 3DS, so I don't know what it's running. Some sort of Nintendo OS, I suppose. Yeah.
It's probably based on.
There is Linux for DS.
Yeah, no. We put Linux on one of our old DSs, and that was actually a ton of fun. Like it worked oddly well. I mean, you couldn't do much with it, but it worked really well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys. Yeah. Yeah. Now everyone can go home.
There is still raffle.
Oh, there's a raffle.
Yeah.
That's right.